Hello, Facebook students. Hello, my Facebook students. Are we ready to learn how to graph a line, which is called a linear equation? Hello, my Facebook students. Oh, we have a person on. Okay. So we are ready to review something new. Today we're going to learn how to graph a linear equation, graphing a line. All right, so let's get started. Hi, Mr. Chill. I'm glad you're watching. I'm pretty sure you know all of these things, you know. All right, let's get started. Okay. First of all, let me just show you. Let me show you why we need to know how to graph a line and give you the tools. I have a lot on my desk today. We use something called graph paper, okay? Normally in school, they would give you some graph paper or tell you to purchase some graph paper because it's kind of easier to, you know, instead of using a ruler. Let me bring out my ruler because I have a lot of tools here in my textbooks. All right, sometimes we use a ruler when we do freehand drawing, which I used to do a lot of when I used to do drafting. But this is called graph paper. And the reason why it's called graph paper, because when you graph a line, you're graphing it on a rectangular coordinate system that is like this, but you have to, you know, define your x-axis and your y-axis. If you want to know what those terms are, if you replay some of my sessions that I've done, you will be able to follow me with that. Okay? Just wanted to show you some of the tools that you will use when in graphing a line on a coordinate plane. All right, so let's get started. I'm not going to go through the basics because I did that in previous sessions. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the equation that I want to graph. All right, my equation is y equals negative 3x plus 4. Okay? So we want to, you're probably looking at this problem saying, my, how do we graph this equation? Well, this is the equation that comes from, in one of my sessions, y equals mx plus b. All right? Where m is the slope and b is my y-intercept. And I'm not going through that today because if you go back and replay some of my sessions, you will find out what those variables mean. All right? So I'm going to erase this because I've already gone over that part. So basically, this is the formula for graphing an equation of a line. All righty? Okay. All right, so how do we do that? Let me check my board here. So how do we look at this equation and how do we know what to do so we can graph a line? A line, well, linear means that you're graphing a line. You see L-I-N-E? It is the root word in linear, okay? I am big on vocabulary because if you recall, you will find your answers in your definitions, in your words, in your terms, vocabulary, all right? So, the first thing that we need to do is figure out, let's create a table. We want to create a table. Create a table. And I just want to make sure everyone can see me that's on. Let me check. Make sure everybody can see. Okay. If everything is viewing well, please let me know. If not, I will make adjustments. All right, so we need to create a table first. And how do we do that? We have to create our ordered pairs. The X and Y. X and Y give you your ordered pairs. I went over that, so go check out a previous session and you would know what ordered pairs mean. Okay? So your ordered pairs are your coordinates. So X and Y tells you where you're going to plot it on the x-axis and then where it's going to be located on the y-axis. Okay? So this ordered pair would give you a point. All right, it's common to start with -2 for your x, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So we're going to plot 4 points. Well, we're going to, plot 4 points. Okay? So we can really get a good line. We can see that straight line, whether it's going to come out diagonally, horizontally, or vertically. Okay? So, in order for us to find out how we're going to plot this or graph this, I'm going to make the rectangular coordinate grid after I show you this part. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take the x values, your variable, these are your x values, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay? We want to take these values and we want to plug it or substitute, or as I call it, plug and chug. We want to place these numbers where the x is. So I'm going to just do an example here. So we're going to take -2 where I'm going to rewrite the equation, -3x plus 4. Okay? And I'm going to substitute, or I'm going to place or plug in -2. So we're going to write -3. And remember, any number that's next door to the parentheses represents multiplication. All right? So we're going to place -2 where the x value is. That is the x that we're substituting. That is 0.1. That's your first ordered pair. Plus 4. Okay? Let's continue, bring down, because what we're doing, we're finding what y is if we're given the x value. So we're finding what y is when we're given the x value. Okay, so I gave you these x values. All right, so a negative times a negative gives you a positive. So 3 times 2 is 6. That's a positive 6. Bring down your plus and your 4. So 6 plus 4 is equal to a positive 10. But in the book, you would not see that positive there. So we're just going to drop the symbol and just put 10. Okay? So now we can put this number, the y value, on our table. So when we're given a -2 and we place it or plug it into this equation for the value of x, we come out with the result of 10. Okay? So I'm going to erase this, and now I'm going to plug in -1. So what we're going to do is just keep plugging in the values, and then we'll be able to plot it on our graph. All right? So now we're going to put y, -3. Now we're going to go to our second point, and we're going to plug in -1. Okay, so a -3 times a -1 give me a +3 plus 4. We do our arithmetic, and that is a +7, which is just equal to 7. When you don't have a positive symbol in front of a number or a value, they call them values, numbers, it's the same thing, okay? So you just put 7. So if it doesn't have a positive symbol in front of it, you always assume you know that it is positive. It is a positive number, okay? All right, so now we just put it here on our table. So when we plug in -1 for the value for x, we come out with the result of 7. Okay? So we'll keep doing this until we fill in the chart. All right? So now we're substituting our negative. We have our -3. Let me make sure that's clear here. Y equals -3. Now we plug it in 0. We're at the third point. Plus 4. So -3 times nothing or 0 is equal to what? 0. Anything times 0 is always going to be 0. It's nothing. All right, so let's do our arithmetic. So when we plug in 0, we get 4. Okay, so we'll just keep doing that. So now that you know, now it becomes like a pattern. Once you know how to do this, it becomes very easy to do now because it develops a pattern. So you're understanding the pattern. All right, so now let's plug in 1. A negative times a positive gives us a negative. Did you see that? This is really a positive. This is our positive, but remember, it's understood in algebra or in the textbook that we don't have to write that positive symbol there because it's understood. Okay? So I'm going to erase that. But for here, for teaching purposes, I'm just going to leave that there so you can see that a negative times a positive gives us a negative. Those are I'm using those sign rules. And I believe I went over those sign rules in one of my previous sessions. So if you go through my page and you look for some of the sessions, you can go and get those notes. Okay? All right, so now we do our arithmetic. When you have unlike signs, a negative and a positive, or when you have different signs, you must subtract and take the sign, use the sign that goes with the largest number. I went over that also. So just say 4 minus 3. We can read it like that or say it like that. 4 minus 3 is 1. The positive goes with the larger, so we choose the positive symbol. Okay? And remember, we can drop it because you probably won't see this in the textbook. So because it's understood. Okay, so when we substitute a positive 1, okay, that's my dog there going off. All right. Okay, Jack, go back. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so let me go back. When you substitute the x value number 1, we plug it into our equation. We come out with a -3 plus 4, which when you subtract is 1, and you take the sign that goes with the largest. So we have that here. Okay, our last point or our last ordered pair. Okay, now we're going to plug in 2. All right, so we're going to plug in 2 right here because that is the x value. Remember, we're substituting, or like I call it, plug and chug. Take your x value and plug it into that equation or the x, and we do our arithmetic. So a -3, and remember, that's positive. So a negative times a positive gives us a negative, and 3 times 2 is 6. We have unlike symbols or unlike terms, or unlike, different, opposites. When you have 2 different symbols, you must subtract and take the sign of that goes with the largest number. So 6 minus 4 is 2, and the largest number is 6, so that means we bring the negative because that means that symbol goes with the largest number. All right? So here we're going to have a -2. All right. So let's see here. So we have, all right, so now we have created, so I'm going to erase this because we had to create a table. And this is the table of our ordered pairs. Table. This is the table. Trying to spell this. T-A-B-L-E. And this is a table of our ordered pairs. Okay? Or we can say our coordinates. And I'm going to erase this and I'm going to show you why we call them ordered pairs or our coordinates. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of take this, and then when we write our x and y values or the ordered pair or coordinates, it's -2, 10, -1, 7, 0, 4. This is how you write the ordered pairs or your coordinates, because you have to plot these. This is actually your points also. We also call this your points. You're plotting these points, okay? Point 1, point 2, point 3, and point 4. And that hopefully would give us a line that we have to connect all together. All right, so we have 1, 1, and lastly 2, -2. So now we have our points that we can graph or we can plot. Okay? Just want to make sure this is our equation here. This is called our linear equation. Y equals -3x plus 4. Remember, this is your slope here. M is your slope. And 4 is your B, which is called your y-intercept. That means it intercepts the y-axis, okay? And normally you'll see it written like an ordered pair as 0, B, which would be 0, 4. All right, and I'm going to show you something here. You see where this is 0, 4? This is your y-intercept. Look what we have at point 3. What do we have? 0, 4. So that means that's where it should intersect or intercept the y-axis. So that means I came out, my calculation is right because I confirmed it by plugging in my values for x into this equation, and it matches, okay? And remember, your slope tells you how many places you rise. You go your y over your x, and it tells you your rise over your run. Okay? You run over x, and either you rise or you fall on the y-axis. Okay? If you want to understand that a little better, you must go to one of my sessions that I reviewed the slope. What the slope is, how do you what does it mean? How do you interpret that? What's the concepts behind it? So you'll see how all this ties in algebra. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to erase this, and I want to keep my points here so we can plot or graph that when I create a graph. Okay, so let me make sure. All right, so I'm going to erase all of this so it won't look so confusing. And I want to keep what we created. We created a table to create ordered pairs or our points. And now we're going to plot. Sometimes they say plot. Sometimes they say graph it. Okay, so we want to do that. I need room, so I'm going to have to erase this. All right, so let's erase this. You have to use good penmanship when you're doing problems. Okay, so these are our points or ordered pairs. Make sure my board is staying stable here. All right, I hope you all are learning something. If this is helpful to you or you believe for someone else or another student, please don't forget to like and share. Share the love, all right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ordered pairs and I'm going to shift it over here so I can have the room here to graph it. I have a small dry erase board, so just bear with me. Okay, so we have our X and Y. These are our points, so I'm just going to write it here. Point 1 is -2, 10. Point 2 is -1, 7. Point 3 is 0, 4. And 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we have 5 points. I'm sorry, I miscounted. 2 here, here, or maybe I'm not seeing it right here. Okay, and 5. Okay, we have 5 points here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm sorry, I miscalculated that. I'm looking at the board in my eyes. Okay, so we have -2, 10, -1, 7, 0, 4, 1, 1, and 2, -2. Okay, so we have, I'm sorry, I miscounted. We have 5 points here. So these are our points that we're going to plot or graph, which is called your ordered pairs. You see how it's a pair? A pair, it takes 2 to create a pair. So we have 2, we have the X, is your X, and this is your Y. All right, so now I'm going to draw my graph. Let's see how I could do this. Not going to be as straight, but I need to kind of make it here. Okay, so this is my X-axis. This is the positive, and remember this is going in the negative direction. This is my positive Y-axis, and this is the negative Y, okay? And 0 is my origin, and here are my units. So I need to go out 2. So this is 1, 2, and then this is 1, -1, and -2, -1, -2. Okay, so I think for my Y, I have to go all the way up to 10, so I'm going to have to make 10 units. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Uh-oh, I'm going to have to go a little higher. And I'm going to shift this up here. Let me rewrite this. So I have Y equals -3X plus 4. All right, because I need extra room to bring this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 8 here. 1, 2. So let's just do here so we can kind of space it out. But if you want to put all your numbers there, that's fine. I'm just kind of spacing it out, okay? It takes time when you're working out problems. This is why students sometimes staying up late, trying to do their assignments. They can have 10 problems. So imagine if they have 10 problems and they are just learning this concept. It takes time to do all of this because some teachers want you to show their work. But since we're being quarantined and we're doing our assignments online, you still need to have your paper and pencil to at least work it out so you can get your answers right when you put your answer into the computer, okay? Because you don't want to miss it. Because if you have 10 problems and you miss 3, that's a 70%, okay? So you want to make sure that you use your tools. Have your paper, have your pencil next with you with your computer or your laptop and work these problems out so you can get them right, okay? Unless you are a genius and you can see it in your head. All right. Okay, so now we want to now plot these points, and I'm going to use a different color. Our first point is -2, 10. So we're going over to on our negative x-axis. Remember, this is your x-axis, and these are your x values here. So we're going to come over from our origin to -2, and remember, 10 is positive. So this is our positive y. All right? So that means we have to go up 10 and put our point there. And sometimes they like you to label it. So we're going to say this is point labeled at -2 and 10. All right, now we're going to come over -1 and we're going to go up 7. So we're going to come over -1 and we're going to count up to 7, and 7 is before 8. And we're going to label it. They always like you to label it, okay? And we are in quadrant. Let me make sure, I think I reviewed that. This is quadrant 1. Over here is quadrant 1. And over here is quad 2. If they ask you what quadrant you're in, this is quad 3, quadrant 3, and this is quad 4. I'm just putting that there so you will know in case you're asked this in one of your assignments. Which quadrant are your points lying in? Right now we're in quadrant 2, okay? So now let's plot point 3. So now point 3 is 0, so that means we're going straight at the origin, and we have to go up 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wow, this is where this is intersecting the y. See, the point is right on the y-axis. So that means it's intersecting. It's intercepting, okay? Okay, so we have that. That is your B. So we took care of this. So B is 0, 4. So this is like 0, comma B. If you need to know how you write the ordered pair for this one, for the y-intercept. All right, so let's go to 4. So 4, point 4 is we're going to go over 1 and up 1. Over 1, up 1. All right. Do you see this line developing? We're creating a line. It's looking good. 1, comma 1. Okay, our last point is positive 2 on the x-axis, and then we're going down to negative 2. So we're going to go over 1, 2, and come down 1, negative 1, negative 2. I'm not perfect on this, but I'm doing the best freehand. But if I had my graph paper here, then it could be almost perfect, okay? All right, so now we have our points, and you can see how, I'm a little off here, but let's see, negative 2, I need to shift over a little bit so it can kind of, a little off so it can kind of look when I create my line. All right, so now you can see, well, I need to bring that over too. Well, it's kind of off a little bit, but let's see, kind of make my points a little bigger so I can connect them. But when we connect our points, so let's connect the points. It's not perfect, but it should be a straight line. I'm going to erase my quad numbers here. We don't need that anymore. All right, so when I connect my points or my dots, put an arrow at the end. We put an arrow at the end of the line because we can keep going. If I were to keep adding values of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to infinity, that means this line can continue to infinity and beyond, okay? So now you see we have graphed our line by creating a table and plugging the values that I gave into this equation. Negative 3x plus 4. This is what this equation looks like on a graph. So it is a diagonal. And look how it is pointing. It is pointing slanted downward. Downward. And you know I know this is correct because this negative 3, which is my slope, is telling me that this line is sloping downward, okay? It is not increasing, it is decreasing. So analysts that work behind the scenes, maybe in the NBA or in accounting, in the banks, or in the stock markets, this is what they're looking at sometimes in the real world. They want to see, are we decreasing in demand or supply, or are we increasing? So this equation is telling me that we are going downward. We are decreasing. And the reason why I know that this is correct because of this negative symbol. If this was positive, the line would go this way. That means we're going upward. Okay? That means we are increasing. All right? That means the demand for whatever we want at Walmart or anything, for a talk show or for our hair, it's going upward. Okay? So if that was positive, then if this was a positive 3, we would be increasing and the diagonal would go up. It will be sloping, have a slope going upward, okay? So I'm going to erase this, and I want to point out one last thing for this problem. I want to show, now this was the long way to graph this equation. There is an easier way if you know all of the concepts. If you know the foundational concepts, you can look at this problem and just graph it right away. Just by understanding the terms, the definitions, okay? So what I'm going to do is, let me just make sure I have everything that I wanted to cover. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's take 2 points. The first thing I want to do, and let me slow it down just a tad bit because this is a very key point that students should know. Once you create a table, you find your ordered pairs or your points or your x and y values, and you plot it. The way to check it, which is an easier way once you understand how to really do this by going through these steps, you can just look at what I said before. 4 is your y-intercept, and it's labeled as 0b, or x comma y. It's the same thing. Don't let it confuse you. Don't let it trick you up. Your x and y coordinates, because we're on 2 dimensions. We're not on 3 dimensions. So you have your x-axis and you have your y-axis, vertical and horizontal. Okay? So when I label this as 0 comma b, this is y equals mx plus b. So 4 is your b. Okay? And we don't have an x value, so we have to put 0 in that place, in that location. Okay? So once I do this first, you want to do this first. You want to say, oh, this is 0 comma 4 or 0b. So I can just go 0, come up 4, boom. I have my y-intercept right here. Y-intercept is right here already. Then, once I do this, I can find my second point on this graph by saying, oh, let me look at my slope. So M is my slope. M is my slope. But how do we get the slope? The slope tells you, and I'm just going to write it over here, slope. It tells you your y over your x values. It tells you how many places to run over. You always have to run to the right. Run to the right on the x-axis. This is the x-axis. So this is your slope is a fraction. It's your y values over your x values. And I went over that in a previous session, so how to get that, but we don't need to determine that because they gave it to us. Our slope is 3, negative 3 over 1. Okay? So let me finish this out. Your x-axis tell you to run to the right on the x-axis. Always run to the right. You never want to run to the left. Never, because your answer won't come out right. Once you do this first, you do your x value first, then you come up here on your second, and it tells you whether you go up on the y-axis or whether you go down. Okay? So our slope is negative 3. They gave it to us, but they didn't tell us what it's over. But any whole number, I don't care if it's negative or positive, it will always be divided by 1. Always. So if you just say I want to put my age. If I want to put my age, let's say 20. If I'm 20 years old, I will put 20 divided by 1 because it's understood when you understand the concepts of your numbers, of your values, of how you create a fraction. So a whole number is always over 1, 100%. I think last week I went over percentages. How do you convert from decimal to percent to a decimal, from a fraction to a decimal to a percent, okay? So now we have our fraction because y over x creates our fraction. So we take -3 and we place it over 1. So this is going to tell me that I'm going to go to my y-intercept here, and I'm going to come over 1. From this point, I'm just going to come over 1, okay? I'm come over 1. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to go to the right 1, and guess what? This negative tells me I'm going to go down the y-axis. Not up, but down. So from here, I'm going to drop down 3 points. 1, 2, and 3. Boom! I land right here on 1, 1. Right here. I land right there. Okay? So I can see if I go to any point and move over 1 and drop down 3, I should hit every point. Boom, doom. I should go from go over 1, come 1, 2, 3, boom. I create, so if I come over 1, drop down 3, 1, 2, 3, boom. If you see this pattern, this between these 2 points is a diagonal, and that is called your slope. That is called your slope, okay? So your slope is going downward. If I was to put an arrow here, every time we move over 1 and come down 3, we hit that point. We hit that ordered pair. We hit these points, okay? And it creates a right triangle. See, here's your geometry in this also. For the ones that are probably in geometry, this creates a right triangle, and a right triangle has a 90-degree angle. So you know that you have a slope when you create a right angle that's pointing downward, okay? So I didn't have to create a table if I didn't want to. I could have just, from all the foundation that I have learned from let's say, 1st grade, 2nd grade. You know, some of these students are learning algebra in the 1st grade, depending on what school you're attending. But if you know the fundamentals of graphing a line or a linear equation, you can look at this problem and graph it right away without a table. So there's a million ways of graphing this problem. But right now, I just wanted to show you some of the basics of how you can graph it, creating a table, or by looking at it and understanding your terminology. Okay? I know that this is a lot, but if you take the time, and this is something that you need to understand for your class, for your assignments, please replay it. Take notes. Go through it again. Try to figure it out on your own. Go back and look at my notes and see if you got it right. And this is a way that you can understand how to graph a line, creating a table, or just by looking at it, okay? Let me look at my notes. I want to make sure I covered everything.
Yeah, go ahead. Right down there, say hi.
All right, so the last word I want to make sure you understand so you won't be confused is when you say graphing, don't let it confuse you. Graphing means the same thing as plotting. Plotting a line, okay? Don't let these words trip you up, okay? If you understand the words and you understand what to do, you would get these type of problems right every time. All right, so I know it's a lot, but if you replay it and take your time and take notes and go through it step by step, I promise you, you will get this. So I hope that this is a good review for you all that already know this, and for those students. I'm sorry, Jet is just going off today. That's okay. And for those students that are struggling with a problem like this, hopefully this will help. If this is helping you or someone else, please to share the love. Like and share. All right, this is Problem Solved, and I hope you all are staying healthy and safe. And please, please, if this is really helping you all and someone else, or if you know that you can help out your students or your children, please take the time and check out all the sessions, previous sessions, and hopefully that'll be a great review for them. All right, so stay safe, healthy, and peace. And remember, we are always learning here at Problem Solved. Thank you for watching, Facebook students. Have a great day.